Hey, I've been hearing a lot of people talking lately about whether Pro Tools is industry standard or not. Yes, it's industry standard. No, no way. Pro Tools is not industry standard. What are you talking about? I'll give my opinion on it. Here's the thing. A lot of songs are professionally mixed in Pro Tools, and you can't really get away from it. Any studio that I've been to, Pro Tools is the DAW that they have. Now, when you go to a studio, it's more about recording, mixing, mastering. So yeah, they're gonna have Pro Tools there because that's what Pro Tools is really best for. And I'm not saying you can't do that in any other DAW. You definitely can. I've never walked into a major studio and saw FL Studio on their computers. I've never seen it. Only encountered Pro Tools at major studios, and I've been to tons of major studios over the years, and they all use Pro Tools. I've never seen any other DAW ever in a studio. Now, with that being said, as technology gets better, we're able to do a lot of production, recording, mixing, mastering at our own houses now. So you're probably going to stick with whatever DAW you're already using. If you're using FL Studio, you might just do everything in there, and you can. Same thing with Ableton or Logic. You know, you could start a song from start to finish in any of these other DAWs without a problem. I just think when people think industry standard, they're talking about major recording studios. But more people are doing things on their own nowadays. So I guess I see the point to where, yeah, Pro Tools is maybe less of an industry standard when you think of it like that. But it's still the standard when you go to a big studio. But it's not the standard when you're talking about upcoming artists and producers and engineers working on their own. Yeah, they're going to be using whatever DAW they're comfortable with. Now, to tell my story and what I use and what I have used in the past, since about 2003 up until 2020, I was using Cool Edit Pro to do all of my recording and mixing, all of my editing. I've even made beats straight up in Cool Edit Pro. A lot of my friends who know me from back in the day, they know how I got down in Cool Edit. It's not even really made for making beats, but it's really just for editing, and you know, you can record and mix in there. But the way that I use it to chop samples and edit and all that, yeah. So that's the DAW of choice for me for, you know, pretty much like almost 20 years. But I will say, back in 2006, when I went to SAE, they gave us Pro Tools over there. I had like a really basic version, like Pro Tools 7 LE or something. So there's only like 12 stereo tracks or something like that to use. So I couldn't even really use it. So yeah, I never really used Pro Tools from my house because I didn't really have a good version. So I was using Cool Edit Pro for all those years at the house. But when I was going to major studios, I knew how to use Pro Tools because, you know, when I went to SAE, I graduated from there, and, you know, I knew how to, I was taught how to use Pro Tools. I knew how to do it, but I didn't feel like I needed Pro Tools. So that's kind of what the whole point of the story is. Yeah, I knew how to use it, but I didn't feel like I needed it, and I didn't need it. But I always feel like it's always good to know more than one DAW. I know how to use most DAWs except for Ableton. Well, that's the next one that I want to get into. But yeah, when I was going to the studios to do work with other artists and recording and mixing, I would use Pro Tools. Again, that's all they had at the studio, so that's what I used there. In 2020, during COVID, I had to do more mixing sessions from the house that required Pro Tools. But I can't open Pro Tools sessions in Cool Edit Pro. A lot of people didn't know how to send stems, which, of course, you already know how I feel about that. I have 100 videos that I made on how to send stems, so make sure you watch those. But yeah, I would get a bunch of Pro Tools sessions for me to mix. Eventually, I just had to buy my own copy of Pro Tools and a new Mac and all that. Pro Tools is my main DAW for recording, mixing, and mastering. That's what I use mainly. I'm just comfortable with it. I've been using it for a long time. I use FL Studio for making beats and production, and I use Logic Pro from time to time too. Sometimes I arrange my beats in FL Studio, but a lot of times I'll arrange my beats in Pro Tools. It's just easy. Once you have all of the beats stemmed out, it's so much easier to chop things and move things around in Pro Tools than in other DAWs, in my opinion. So that's another reason why I use it. And a lot of people say, oh, you can't make beats in Pro Tools. You know how many times I've had to program drums? Sometimes I'll do my full beat in Pro Tools. I'll chop a sample in Pro Tools, I'll program drums, copy and paste kicks. It almost reminds me of how I used to do it back in like 98, 99. Before I even had Cool Edit. I had this old ass program called Compact Wavemaker. This was some basic ass editing program that wasn't ever made for making beats, but I would literally just like figure out the milliseconds because there was no bars and beats grid, and I would copy and paste hi-hats. I figured out that 0.2 seconds was equal to a 16th note hi-hat at 75 BPM. So I would just copy and paste that multiple times until I got to 8 bars, and I would paste kicks and snares on top of that. Yeah, real complicated, but that's how I used to make beats, if anyone wants to know. That was up until 2003 when I bought Cool Edit Pro, which finally had a bars and beats grid. The hell was I talking about? Yeah, like I've had to program and do additional production, do full productions in Pro Tools. Pro Tools has a piano roll. I program 808s and I've programmed drums in the piano roll in Pro Tools. It's not as easy, but I've done it and it's fine and it works. I guess at the end of the day, just use whatever you're comfortable using. Continue to do it. Like I said, it's always good to learn other DAWs in case you get a session from someone who uses something else. Most likely, it's going to be probably Pro Tools. I still think Pro Tools has a majority when it comes to major label sessions. I can only speak for myself. Any major label session that I've mixed or had to either deliver files to or then sending a session to me to mix or do production or whatever, it's always Pro Tools. It's always a Pro Tools session. If it's not stems, it's Pro Tools. So I still think that Pro Tools does have that slight edge as far as them being the standard, just because of what I see. Maybe in time, it's going to maybe even out, and maybe Pro Tools will be a little bit less. I still think major studios are always going to use Pro Tools, at least here in the US, and I think the other DAWs are more for producers and engineers who are either working at smaller studios or working from home. They're going to use whatever DAW they want. But yeah, that's just how I feel about it. What do you guys think?